Let's go over the essential role that an accessibility audit plays in filling in a VPAT and creating an ACR. So, we need an audit to accurately and completely fill in the accessibility table of the VPAT. Broadly, what I'd like you to take away here is that the accessibility audit is fundamental to everything we do. So, it is so important that the audit is conducted the right way. And the reason I emphasize this is because there are many contractors and even accessibility companies that don't conduct accessibility audits the right way. An accessibility audit is a formal, thorough evaluation whereby your product or service is effectively graded against the technical accessibility standard. Now, what's also important about this is the evaluation methodologies used are going to show in the ACR. So, if the evaluation methodologies are insufficient, any knowledgeable reader of the ACR will know this, and they will know that you could not effectively account for all of the criteria in the applicable technical standard. So, it is so important that the audit is conducted the right way. Relatedly, an automated scan is only a review. It should never be a primary source of identifying issues. So, with an automated scan, it's actually good to have as a bullet point in your evaluation methodologies used section, but we don't want to rely solely on a scan. Instead, we want to use it as a review, as a secondary filter to ensure that any issues that are correctly flagged by a scan are included in our ACR, but we don't want to use an automated scan as a primary source of finding issues. The audit must be thorough, it must be meticulous, and it must be fully manual. Again, a scan is not an audit. All right, so many clients ask me about the difference between an audit and a VPAT, and really they're asking about the difference between an audit and an ACR. But let's go over everything. So, an audit is going to be a thorough, formal evaluation, it's going to be manually conducted. The audit results will be detailed in an audit report. The VPAT is the standardized template that we are going to fill in using the audit report. And then once it's filled in and completed, we will have an ACR or an accessibility conformance report. So we use the audit report to fill in the VPAT. The audit report is much more detailed than the final ACR. So one way to think about this is with a basketball game, at the end of the game, you'll have a box score and you'll be able to see all of the players' totals for points, rebounds, assists, etc. So the box score will be very detailed and cover many different categories. The VPAT is just going to be, and think of that, think of the box score as the audit. The VPAT and the ACR are going to be more like accounting for the points and minutes played, and that's it. So we're not going to get all of the same details. So the audit report is much more detailed. The ACR is really just the audit results, um, the audit results, the final tallies. So just like the very end results. So let's look at an actual screenshot of an audit report. Here, this is an Excel spreadsheet format. We can see that there are several columns. And here we have the page title and section where the issue was found, the page URL where the issue was found, the environment combinations that produced the accessibility issue, the associated WCAG success criterion, the issue title, the issue description, the applicable code for the issue, the users affected, the recommended fix, and there are a few more columns that are not shown in the screenshot, but the point is the audit report is very detailed. It is here to help you identify the accessibility issue and fix the accessibility issue. Now, when we look to an ACR, again, we're only getting whether or not the product or service supports, does not support, etc., the specific criterion. And then we're also getting the remarks and explanations column. We will look at those in a later lesson, but for now, just keep in mind that the audit report is much more detailed. It's there to help you with the fixes. The ACR is just a report that you're going to show so that anybody can quickly gloss over and look at the accessibility status of your product or service. Now, I talked about evaluation methodologies earlier with a comprehensive audit, which all audits should be comprehensive. But again, many are not conducted the right way. But for audits that are conducted the right way, they are going to use multiple diverse methodologies to evaluate your product or service. So I have here screen reader testing, keyboard testing, visual inspection, audible inspection, code inspection where applicable, using browser zoom, using a color contrast analyzer tool, etc. So again, we want to make sure that we're using all of these different ways of evaluating to make sure that we uncover and identify all of the accessibility issues as we are grading against a technical standard. Now, one option with accessible.org and many accessibility companies that clients like is that they are able to pause the process. So we can go straight from an audit report to filling in a VPAT and creating an ACR. That is an option. But another option is that we can go ahead and pause the process and allow your team to fix the issues so that you have a cleaner ACR as a result with less accessibility issues. So let's go through these bullet points. An ACR can be immediately issued after an audit, or you can fix the issues before issuance. Just make sure that the scope remains stagnant. So this is stating that we want to make sure that you're not making any other changes to your product or service, that everything is staying flat and that no changes have been introduced, because otherwise that's going to tamper with the audit results and the validation. So we want to make sure that there are no other changes going on besides those dealing with accessibility. And if you fix issues, those issues need to be validated by the auditor. So it's one thing for your team to fix the issues, but we need to make sure that the issue has indeed been resolved. So because of that, we need to have the auditor go in and validate those fixes. Many accessible.org clients choose this path because they want to have a cleaner ACR. They don't want to just have those accessibility issues that show up in the audit report also show in their ACR. So, another service that is optional but recommended and does reflect well when you have this included in your evaluation methodologies used section is user testing. So, this is going to be where you have a professional with one or more disabilities, and they're going to test your product or service, usually using assistive technology, and they're going to relay their experience. So, where the audit is more technical and more sterile, the user testing is going to be more experiential, still extremely helpful. Also, again, it reflects well to have this as an evaluation methodology used, and you can have this as a second filter. So you wouldn't want to start with user testing because that would be really a waste of time. But what you'd like to do is have the audit conducted, fix the issues, validate the issues, then come in with user testing as an additional filter. Again, this is optional, but it is recommended. So with the audit, you will have assistive technology used. Usually it will be two screen readers, but it can be more. The more assistive technology you use, the more environment combinations you have, the more robust your audit will be. It will also take longer to complete and it will be more expensive. So you just have to keep that in mind. But some different assistive technologies that may be involved are here we have four screen readers and really one voice control. But I have here NVDA, which is for Windows. You have JAWS for Windows. You have VoiceOver for Apple devices. You have TalkBack for Android. And then I also have here Dragon Naturally Speaking. This is voice control software. But these are all assistive technologies, and there are so many more, but it's usually multiple screen readers that are involved with an accessibility audit. So also I mentioned environments. Environments are very important. The more environments we have, the more robust our audit is. So for most digital assets, there will be both desktop and mobile environments. But sometimes it's just desktop and sometimes it's just mobile. Obviously, with a mobile app, it's going to be just mobile. But again, it really depends on the digital asset. We'll also have multiple browsers involved. So with mobile, our default environment is going to be iOS and Safari, along with VoiceOver Screen Reader. And then for desktop, our default environments are Chrome, NVDA, and Chrome, NVDA, and Windows desktop. and then you will choose the environments. You'll want to choose the environments that cover most of your audience's preferred ways to access your digital asset in this case. So looking at this as a product or service that's digital, you'll want to look at your analytics and just see where are most what combinations are most of our audience using. So are they primarily on desktop? Then you would focus on desktop. If you also have a nice mix of mobile, then you'll want to include that as well. But sometimes the product or service really is just dedicated for desktop or software. So it's one or the other. So a good example of this would be desktop software. So with an auditor, you want to make sure that they have technical expertise. So this comes into play if you are auditing in-house. You want to make sure that you have the technical expertise to actually audit. So they need to have knowledge of the web content accessibility guidelines and any other applicable technical accessibility standards. You want to make sure they have at least 1 year of experience in actually auditing, so that you don't want to this should not be a weekend project or a rush to make sure that we have someone who can audit. They just won't have the experience necessary to have the expertise. And that's what I have here. You cannot develop audit expertise in a few weeks. It develops over time. You have to have the knowledge to start with. But even if you take a course, you just have to put in that time and those reps to become to develop an expert level, to reach expertise in auditing. And then I have here, if you do not have this in-house, then you can either hire an accessibility expert to work in-house or source out the work to technical experts. You will want to avoid any accessibility company or anybody who is promoting an overlay or selling an overlay, any type of overlay widget. This tells you all you need to know. And if you aren't familiar with overlays and overlay widgets, go to overlayfactsheet.com. There you will find out why you should never use an overlay widget or an overlay. So if a company is selling these, you want to avoid them. Also, you want to avoid any company who combines automated plus manual as a way of conducting accessibility audits. You do not combine scan results with manual work. It's all manual, and we review with scans. So the most important part is that we identify all of the accessibility issues correctly, and you're not going to be able to do this with any confidence if you are combining automated scan results with manual work. There's not a combination. Now, there may be you can use and should use an automated scan as a layer in your audit process, but again, it's not the primary way of identifying issues. So make sure to look out for any accessibility companies that are saying you can combine automated scans, they might call it automated testing, with manual. You do not combine. It is all manual. We need to make sure that we're going back to those evaluation methodologies and we are conducting the audit the right way. All right, so last, for resources, if you need help with VPAT services, accessible.org offers these. Also, Accessibility Tracker is a platform that tracks all accessibility issues, not just those identified by scans. And it also has AI to help your team with fixes as they are working through the accessibility for your product or service. And in the description, I will include the link to the playlist for this full VPAT training. Also, any updates or add-ins for this lesson, and I will include more resources that are not found on this description. So again, you want to make sure that you are fully auditing your product or service, that it's being audited the right way. Scan results they're just scanned. They're just flagged by automation. We need to make sure that we are correctly and completely identifying all accessibility issues so that our ACR is strong when we finally have that issued. So that is it for this lesson. We will continue on with the next.